But that's why I'm so radical with these ideas that either we need to hit rock bottom in order to be awakened.
So, should we start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Yeah. So we're doing another very special edition of Ruzzarin Bros podcast. We have a very important and a very special guest for us, a friend from Mateus from the UK. Fintan, thank you so much for joining us, man. So just to begin with, like, since we're both like locals and we're normally doing this by ourselves, would you mind introducing a little bit yourself, speaking about your experiences, your field of study, your fields of expertise? Where's your mind right now? What are you doing with your life?
So hi, I'm Fintan Nagle. I'm a cognitive scientist, but my background is actually more in biology and literature. I very nearly did for undergraduate English language and literature, so I would have had a completely different life. I would have ended up being a writer or a journalist or something. But through some strange coincidences, I ended up studying biology. So I did 2 biology masters, and then I ended up in cognitive neuroscience, and I work at the moment in an attention lab. So we look at how people select what's important to look at, what stimuli are key to pay attention to in the environment. Wow. And specifically in my day job, I look at automated driving. So I look at how the driver will switch between actually driving the car and sitting back, reading a book and doing something else. That's my day job. My major research interest, apart from this, is how people use their attention to communicate, and how this has changed when technology has given us new solutions like the internet and email and online communication. I'm very lucky to be in the last generation you probably share this as well, to be in the last generation to have grown up without the internet. So I got to about age 12 or 13 before I ever encountered the internet. And I spent a lot of time as a child actually writing letters and receiving letters.
Cool.
So I've been able to see at firsthand how the scope and situation has changed. And there are many things about the modern way in which we communicate and which we pay attention to things as a society, which I'm not really very happy with at the moment. I'm sure you share about this as well.
Yeah, we do.
Definitely, man. Yeah, from my time in London and all the discussions we had, one of our biggest debates were on social media. And well, I mean, on that same note about your background, I remember you told me a story about an episode you had working actually on a startup for a social media startup. Remember that?
Yeah, so this was how I was really introduced to thinking about these things in the last few years. Mm-hmm. As a member of the last generation to have grown up without the internet, I didn't use anything like Snapchat or WhatsApp a few years ago. I do have a WhatsApp now.
Oh,
I still don't
good
have
to know,
Snapchat.
man. We were emailing back and forth. Yeah.
So I wasn't really aware of how the younger generation, even people at my own age, were engaging with the internet. Just after I finished my PhD, I needed a job while I was applying for postdocs. Yeah, and I ended up doing some data science consulting work for a social media company. Now, I'm not going to name any names here because this company burned through £20 million in approximately 2 years of existence. And they tried essentially to clone Instagram. So they tried to come up with a copy of Instagram and to deploy it. And they were relatively successful in terms of their number of users. They had a peak of 4 million users. But it turned out that they weren't really managing a lot of issues correctly. And I was brought in actually to help with harassment. So my job was to use machine learning to write algorithms to detect harassment and spam and abuse on the network. And I wasn't prepared at all for the level of harassment and abuse that I would find when I arrived in this situation. I moved quickly from using text tools to detect swear words and racially motivated sexual abuse and so on, to looking at images as well. So this app was an Instagram clone, so it was fairly centered around images. And
no, go ahead.
And the amount of bad behavior, the amount of harassment, and the amount of negative conversations going on this app really shocked me at the time. And it wasn't only me. We had 13 or 14 employees when I joined the company. 6 months after I joined, all of the female employees walked out on the same day.
Wow.
And shortly after this, all of the engineers left as well. And the reason behind this was that the management didn't have the user's welfare in mind at all. The management's plan was to make a quick exit, sell the company, and just to get as many users and as much engagement as possible.
So one question here. When you mentioned this wannabe social media was pretending to become a clone of Instagram. So do you know if Instagram has the same type of algorithms to fish and find this type of harassment?
Instagram doesn't have this problem as much because Instagram has good privacy controls. Instagram's a fairly simple place to be. You have your profile, you can make it private or public, and you can control who follows you. Many other platforms don't have this type of control at all. And the one that I worked with, they completely negated this. Their system was you would upload a short video, you press a button, and it would send it to 50 random users around the world.
It was sent like randomly.
And you can imagine the avenues that this opens up for harassment.
It can be so easily misunderstood in the sense like you suddenly receive a video from a hot girl and you pretend there's an opening,
or you're a little girl and you receive a video from an old creep.
Like it can go
exactly.
bad.
So
it can go very bad very
young
quickly.
Teenagers. It was meant for uploading pictures of your cat, pictures of wildlife, and so on. And the peak in the user ages was actually between 14 and 16. So this is a very vulnerable age. This is an age where people are starting to get on the internet.
Oh my God!
For the first time.
Yeah,
I remember this age.
I mean, it was a
disaster.
guaranteed disaster, like eating a burrito before sex.
Yeah, it was a guaranteed disaster.
Oh my God, that's so bad. But you know, but it seems like also almost like counterintuitive to human behavior. Like, what were these people expecting?
Yeah, also like the creator was kind of a douchebag, right? Like he just had a bunch of I think he was rich from his family or something. He just got a bunch of money from a bunch of investors and just went on with it. Like he wasn't like a
probably he had like he
visionary.
was saying it. He had like an exit strategy. He wanted to inflate the number of potential followers and engagement, and just like validate the company in a number, and just like get investment, sell out, and exit.
I have some sympathy for him actually, because he had some problems with addiction. And addiction, really, if I have to sum up in one word the issues we're having with social media these days, it's addiction. In this case, addiction was used to keep users on the app and to get them using the app. And we had 2 or 3 people at the company working on what's called dark patterns, so ways to manipulate users into coming back on the app. And one of the best known one of these is the Snapchat Stories feature. So this updates your story, and it gives you a streak if you log on back to the app every day. So this instantly puts in a vein of competitiveness and a way to validate people using the app every day and making it a major part of their lives.
It's almost like using gamification in favor of the system to get the user hooked into working for the system, right?
Exactly, and there's a lot we can take from psychology about this. The bookshelf at this company was full of books on how to use the dopamine system to keep users engaged. I prefer to use cognitive science to avoid addiction and to provide good tools.
But one thing, don't all social medias base their systems on this idea of like dopamine addiction?
Yes.
Yeah, Facebook. Remember the scandal of Facebook?
I mean, we did a whole podcast on this subject on the other day, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation with you. This is really, really interesting. You know, I have this sense. I mean, we're coming from very different backgrounds. Like to begin with, like Mateus is a philosopher. I'm a designer, but I'm also very interested in philosophy and psychology, specifically psychoanalysis. And so talking to a cognitive, to someone with a background in biology and cognitive behavior, it's very interesting because I've had this sentence in my mind for the past few years that is, attention is the new currency. In the sense that attention is today what we use to pay for what we want, but without knowing it. Like we use our attention to work for the systems that reward us with the dopamine that we truly desire.
Exactly, so we have the idea of the attention economy. We no longer pay for our news or our services in even a small amount of money. We pay for it in our time.
Correct.
We pay for it in the adverts that we have to sort through and the effects that these eventually leave on our consciousness.
Exactly.
And it is fairly well known now, but even though I'd studied attention for a few years, a couple of years ago, I hadn't put this together. I hadn't, because it's all hidden. You don't see, when you open a web browser, the hundreds of cookies which are tracking your advertising preferences. You don't see all of the networks which are agitating behind the scenes to control what you see. We've all been here. We've all looked at a motorbike on eBay, and all over the web, adverts are offering us motorbikes later on. So the attention economy is very central at the moment.
Right.
And indeed, I see the internet and online communication as the attention system of society. So inside one person, the attention system's job is to select what's important and to guide us towards what tasks we should complete, what stimuli we should attend to.
So
on the social level,
I was
like
going to ask you,
on Facebook select what political aspects we think are important, and they have a lot of influence on who we vote for.
Yeah. So how exactly does this mechanism work? Like, how do they exploit? Is it by colors? Is it by length of text or of images or with algorithms? How is it exploited?
A couple of examples. We can leverage psychological processes like visual salience. Humans are hunter-gatherers. We grew up in evolutionary time looking around on the ground for fruits and berries and so on. And so, for example, Facebook, it's all blue, but when you get a notification, it's red. It's a very salient color.
Yeah, it's annoying.
It's got nice rounded edges as well, so it looks like something kind of attractive.
It's like a berry,
you go for. And that's on the visual design level. On higher levels, we have things like Facebook notifications. You've often got 10 or 12 notifications about one conversation or one thread. Facebook could easily batch these, so you don't have to spend as much time clicking on all the notifications. But if you get a notification, you're likely to engage with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the main thing, I think, the main way in which social networks control our attention is by the algorithms that they use to select what we look at.
Yeah.
When I joined Facebook in 2006, you'd go onto your newsfeed and it was purely in chronological order, so you'd see what your friends had posted most recently. Now, the newsfeed is selected by an algorithm, and this is trained not on how well you will engage with the post or how happy it makes you or how much you learn from it. The algorithm is simply trained to maximize the amount of time that people spend on Facebook. And I've seen this myself, and it's also been confirmed by studies. The algorithm will show you more posts that you argue with.
Correct.
It will show you more posts from people you disagree with.
It creates higher engagement.
I remember the story you told me about the relationships. And,
I've read this article recently. There's a very interesting guy from Israel. I think it's a clinical psychologist, if I'm not wrong, or a behavior psychologist, that he's defending a thesis that currently there's a 30% increase in anxiety and depression related to the addictive use of social media, especially in young people. And he's dividing...
Yes, I could go on for about half an hour with statistics like this. I've done a couple of 90-minute talks, and at the first one, actually, the audience was starting to look a bit depressed after the first 45 minutes.
But I think it's important.
But social media harms people.
But this is
just
important.
give you a couple, just for illustrative purposes.
Go ahead.
Instagram is the most harmful platform because it's so more visual, and it's associated with much more body image problems, anorexia, feelings of visual
inferiority,
for example. This is the first year where teenagers say they prefer to meet someone new online than in real life, and teenagers who use social media for more than 4 hours a day, they're much more likely to have issues like depression or to have mental health problems. And the most I think impressive statistic I can give you, there's a project where you try and quit Facebook for 90 days, and hardly anyone manages to do this. But the best predictor of whether you're likely to go back to Facebook is whether you prefer interacting with people or whether you prefer sharing things and getting likes. If you prefer getting likes, you're more likely to go back to Facebook. But if you prefer interacting with people and you miss talking to your friends and seeing their updates, then you're more likely to stay away from Facebook, because we can get these things in a more validating way in real life.
So would you say that the opium of the people today is social media?
Definitely. I can't think of anything which has been more designed to exploit our addictive tendencies and to put us in situations where we're working for other people, we're working for large corporations, and we're not deriving any benefit from this ourselves. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not want to say at all that I'm against the internet or that I'm against technology. I'm a great believer in technology.
The other way around.
The infrastructure at the moment is being used in the wrong way. It's not being used to connect people in ways that are beneficial for society.
It's almost
used to benefit the tech companies.
It's almost Machiavellic. But what's the next step? So what do you propose? Because we can go very utopic or dystopic here, and we can pretend and say, like this has to be limited or regulated in some way, and we're going to have to restrict social media, not even internet, social media usage to a couple of hours per day per user, or we're going to have to audit algorithm design to make sure companies are not manipulating social cognitive behavior in order to get people more addicted to dopamine. Like, where do you propose we go next?
So this all sounds a bit totalitarian, and I don't want to go down this aspect at all. I don't want to go into regulation.
Right.
I don't want to, for example, there's a lot of talk about making web content providers publishers and making them responsible for link sharing. The EU has a proposal to perhaps tax websites whenever they share a link.
Right.
I don't want to go down this route. I don't think we need this yet. I think at the moment we need to provide an alternative. If you look online at the moment, if say you want to have a conversation with friends or colleagues, your only real option is email. If you want to use social media for either a more serious conversation or one that you don't want to share with social networks, we don't really have any choice. And this is what the project that we're running at the moment is about. So it's a project that I started with 4 or 5 colleagues, including you, Mateus.
I was
most of whom are philosophers.
The chief philosophical officer for life.
And we don't aim to replace Facebook. We don't aim to take down any existing social media sites. We simply aim to provide a platform whose sole purpose is to support good conversation and to support interaction between people. To do this in a non-profit way and to just say to people, there is another way, there is another tool that you can use if social media isn't up to your requirements.
See, here's the thing, Fintan. So you mentioned something interesting. You said serious conversation. Okay. So the thing is that I think like in the world it's like we're having less and less serious conversation, and I think social media is to blame because the design of all of those websites and apps and systems, they're not designed for serious conversations at all. They're designed for you to just like read as fast as you can and use abbreviations as emojis and everything.
Simplify, banalize,
and just get on with it. Look at an ad, click, scroll, just keep going. I'm sure there's something about the way we or like lizard brain. I don't want to say lizard brain, but our primitive systems work. Like, and that's where the addiction gets in, right? Like, the faster you try to move, the easier it is to minimize your attention span and keep staying in that loop. If you start to think, to have a deep thought and trying to get serious, you're just gonna do something else. You're not in the right place to have a serious conversation.
Yeah, so we've all seen these conversations on Facebook where they immediately get polarized. As soon as you argue with the detail of the conversation, you're cast as the devil.
Yeah, ad hominem.
And we all get the idea that when we post on Facebook, it's sort of like shouting into a big stadium. Everyone else is trying to shout louder than you are. And so everyone it's an arms race in effect to have more emojis, to be more loud. And there are lots of ways we can try and understand this in psychology. There have been a few experiments in the past few years, for example, on the extended chilling effect. And the extended chilling effect is the effect you find when people alter their personality when they don't know what their audience is. For example, I'm talking to you two now. I'm quite clear on what the audience is. I know how to communicate with you. There'll be a larger audience with the podcast as well. But I know more or less what this will look like. On Facebook, if you have, say, 800 friends, that's so many people that people lose their ability to judge how what they say will relate to the audience.
Correct.
And so people move away from saying positive things into not saying negative things. With the extended chilling effect, they try and avoid anything objectionable, avoid anything that might offend someone. And if you have an audience of 800, it's very hard to do that.
And then 8,000 or 80,000.
Yeah, you're walking on eggshells for the rest of your life. But like for me, I really like the intention, and I agree with the refutal of saying totalitarian is not the way to go if we're gonna try to fix this problem. I think, but I also think and I agree with you. I'm saying this in the same point of view as the one I think you have, which is a little bit utopian in saying that we expect people to reach a new level of based conversations, of a new level of illustration, a new level of depth, where we go back to having meaningful conversations, which for me, it's almost counterintuitive culturally. Because, like today, what I think is that we're almost zombified to this idea of the objective of life is to be entertained.
It's kind of too late in a way.
And I think we're going in a very fast track to this sense of addiction to dopamine, which is this addiction to entertainment, and everything that we have to do in life is maximize happiness and avoid pain. And this I don't know if this even is ideological, but I think this mindset, it's almost allergic to this type of platforms that you are describing. Because I agree 100%. I would love people to donate money to Wikipedia and engage in meaningful conversations and try to come up with assertive points of view that can be refuted and can be built upon and be dragged into theses, antitheses, and be synthesized in something that will drag humanity to a better human condition. But I think this is counterintuitive to whatever else everyone else is doing. This is what really scares me. I think do we need to be like nihilistic and just like provoke another calamity and start over?
I'm quite concerned about this as well. But then I saw that list of quotes, which goes back to 2,000 years BC, and every couple of generations, someone is saying the next generation has no idea how to do anything. Society is going to fall apart. They can't spell anymore. They can't have conversations.
It's a trend.
Yeah.
And I can feel this in a way happening to myself. My attention span gets shorter and shorter, but it could just be that I'm cherry picking the bad ideas.
Yep.
E.O. Wilson, the biologist, said that we're drowning in information and starving for knowledge. And there's an upside and a downside. We do have much more information at our hands than ever before. If I want to go and learn a new skill, I can go and look at some videos on YouTube. If I want to learn a new branch of psychology or even just spend hours and hours reading about my favorite rock star, I can get this information really easily.
Of course.
So I don't want to fearmonger too much about this. And I don't want to say either that we should be only using platforms for serious conversations, that we shouldn't have fun, that we shouldn't use emojis.
No, I agree.
So I think the root of this problem is it's rooted at a very basic way of seeing the world. Like both Nietzsche and Jung said this. They said that if you try to think, if you feel like the world is there to make you happy, you're gonna have a miserable life.
That's true.
Like if your sole objective in life is to be happy, you're gonna be in deep trouble very soon. Very fast.
And this links up very closely with the attention economy, because when you're paying for things in attention, you don't feel like you're paying for anything. You feel like you're getting something free. And,
yes, that's very dangerous. Yes. Yeah.
And when everyone has to get something free, then someone is definitely paying in some way. A really good example of this is on Facebook. All of the comments are folded up until you click on to open them. And this is because there's just not enough bandwidth. There are, say you have 200 friends, all of your comments can't possibly be shown to a significant proportion of your friends. So a lot have to be hidden. And this creates a vicious circle, because now you know your comments are going to be hidden, so you put less time into writing them. You'll feel worse if they're not attended to. And so our commitment is just spiraling away. And this is because we think we can get something for free, and we don't realize that we're actually paying for it in
we're working,
long-term effects like addiction.
I told Diego the other day, like, people don't realize that they are working for Facebook, they are working for Instagram, they are working for Twitter.
I mean, this is a very old joke. I mean, like the little pigs are talking amongst themselves in the farm, and they're saying, "Wow, they treat us so nice, and they give us food, and we can roll in mud all day long, and this is so much fun." And then by the end of the month, you're gonna become bacon.
They become bacon.
You know, like if you're not paying for something, you're probably the product. So I don't think people is going far enough to understand this.
Facebook earns over $20 from each user per year in terms of advertising. And this has a big effect on international inequality as well, because of course we in the West, we can afford to pay for the adverts, but people in countries whose GDP is very low, they have to pay in different ways. And one of the ways that they pay, Facebook negotiates with individual mobile service providers to provide free Facebook.
Of course, because they're pigs.
And so this is the only
metaphorical pigs
that they get for free. And they use the Facebook Marketplace, Facebook business groups, and so on as well.
And actually, on my thesis, on my dissertation, right now, one of the issues, I'm looking at the problems, the ethical and philosophical problems of big data business models. One of the issues is it's power accumulation.
Yeah.
So big data business models are the ideal context for the accumulation of power, because as you said it, they can only, I mean, if they start hiding because they don't have servers to show all of the, they don't have servers and it's not an efficient attention system to show all of the messages. They just show a few of the messages. So what happens with people that want to show some of their content or power, and it just becomes a spiral for the, you know, it's kind of a Pareto distribution.
Yeah, it becomes Pareto very quickly, like in a very narrow way.
So that's one thing. The other thing is that it's the concept of that algorithms are black boxes. That seriously worries me. Not because they're going to become sentient. I'm not really the guy that worries about them becoming alive. We can talk about that in our
I'm not too concerned about that either.
Yeah, we've spoken about this.
Biases. We've known this since the mid-90s when algorithms began to deny loans to people from minorities.
Yeah.
Even though these minorities are just as likely to pay back their loans, there's less data, so they have a smaller standard deviation, so the confidence is lower.
Right.
And so I also work for a company
racist
online
algorithms.
privacy and how to prevent algorithms doing things like this. And there are lots of ways that we can approach it, but we need transparency. We need the algorithms to tell us what
just a question on the black
is using to
just
our attention.
Wow.
Just one question on the black box. I mean, you work with algorithms, you work with data analysis. How much can we understand like what's really happening? Because from the workshops I did on data science, it was like you create like this structure and then you have like a starting point and you give it a goal. And then you don't really know how it get there. How can we like break ground on understanding what's going on? And I mean, can we? I think that's a question.
No matter how complex the algorithms are, one thing that everyone can understand is what data they have access to and what data is going into them. For example, even if you know that you can't look inside the algorithm, if it's completely black box, if it has access to your bank account data, then you might be a bit concerned. If it has access to your internet history, you might be even more concerned. But if you know that this algorithm only has access to your name and your date of birth, then there's a limit to what it can do. There's a limit to how much it can affect you.
We can constrain what we feed into the monster. We don't understand the monster.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, and I just want to go back to the point because you said this idea about algorithms discriminating minority groups. So if an algorithm can become racist, can we deassociate racism from logic or from emotions?
This is a very difficult concept. I've thought a lot about this, and it's still very hard to do because it's very hard to get rid of all possible sources of bias. Yeah. If you say, for example, you want no bias between the nationalities of the people in your database, that's quite easy to achieve. But we can't measure all of these racial biases. We can't measure personality types. It's a very hard thing to do. But one thing that is becoming more prevalent at the moment is the idea that you have to build in a lack of bias into your system. So you need someone in the company who's responsible for making sure, or for trying at least.
That is extremely tough.
Trying to make sure that there is
hard.
Yeah, the thing is like, and then we get to the analog versus digital chestnut. Like we have a bunch of digital systems, but we human beings, we are analog systems. I mean, there's a whole. I mean, we've spoken about this. Remember, Fintan, about the visual systems, and I mean, I don't want to use the word feelings, but the subjective emotions and all of those things is very hard. How do you punch that into ones and zeros? Like it's.
Yeah, but in the end, don't we share a major similarity with digital thinking in the sense that we are also beings of contrast and harmony?
Now we got to philosophy of mind. That's where we want to get.
Actually, the more advanced technology gets, the more we start using machine learning and what is sometimes called AI in technology and industry, the more the digital side is becoming analog.
Correct.
For example, if I have a machine learning network that can identify an object for me or identify a face, sometimes it gets it wrong, sometimes it makes a mistake, sometimes it just breaks down, sometimes it doesn't work. Or if you're a bank and you have thousands of servers all over the world, you're now in a system where they're going to fail all the time. You'll have to swap them out. The system has to be self-healing. It has to be able to fix itself, and it has to be resistant to a lot of trauma. So digital systems are becoming more and more biological and more analog as we go along. Right. If you look at, for for example, ad networks, these are huge organic networks, and they look a lot like slime moles trying to feed on food.
Yeah, like a virus.
Organic systems.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so on this note, you just said, so maybe in a very deep almost quantum level, we are digital, but I think we don't have the processing power, the servers, or the technology to
simulate that amount of calculations.
One example of that is like the complexity of our brains.
Yeah, but the complexity of our gut, of our microbiome system.
Your second brain, but you can also like beyond the biological part. I'm talking about the rational, like the emotional, the subjective, the imaginary. Like
you're saying that is digital?
Well, yeah, it is digital in the sense that we understand the world by contrast and harmony, basically, because like this sense of we understand the value of object A in contrast with object B. If your brain were forced to validate or to evaluate a variable in the void, it would be incapable, because you have no frame of reference, you have nothing else to contrast it to. So in the very, very basic sense, we start everything by doing this sense of contrast and harmony. And there are several different lines of thought that in a way share this idea. You know, the master-slave dialectics of Hegel, Lacan with this idea of the subconscious.
Those are called dichotomies.
Like dichotomies, like Lacan with this idea of the subconscious is a structure like a language, the unconscious is structured like a language. So a bunch of line of thoughts validate or in a way have flirted with this idea to the very primitive, almost quantum level. We are digital, but we are like how many grains of sand make a dune? You know, like in that sense, it's almost like maybe if we advance fast enough with processing power, we can approach this level of complexity that we have in the human brain. But I don't know if we're getting too far away from the main topic. What's your take on this?
Can add a lot to this.
This reminds me of Roger Penrose's point of view. So he believes that because we are not formal systems and we're not digital systems, we have much more power. We have the power to solve mathematical problems where a computer might get stuck in a loop, or we have the ability to perform calculations or to use instinct or intuition on which a computer would get stuck. But what Penrose fails to realize is that a digital system can simulate an organic system very well. And just because it's using a processor, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have some intuition.
I agree.
And with context, you're saying that I believe that everyone comes with some kind of pre-set up context. It could be because of their language, it could be because of the culture that they grow up in, and we need to consider how people operate in that context.
Yep.
Remember about you told me, Fintan, like, I mean, we were having this conversation in a bar about analog and digital, and then you told me like we have no way to express digitally. Like it was like moving a pen, or like a phone, like doing something like this or like this. You remember, like
it was doing a twirling action.
Twirling action. Yes.
You can't. We have input and output systems. We have afferent and efferent nerves, and psychology always tries to understand things in terms of whether they're sensations or whether they're actions. And I was saying with this that when you twirl a pen, your conscious feeling of twirling a pen, you can't separate the input and the output. You can't separate how the pen feels with the movements that your fingers are making to twirl the pen. It's not like when you're just pushing a button, that's definitely output. When you're seeing a light come on, that's definitely input.
It's much more.
It's very complicated.
Yeah. So for the sake of the argument and trying to reach not a conclusion, because that was never the intention of the conversation with you. I think overall the whole conversation is just so interesting that we could go on for hours on this. But for the sake of people that will be watching this, for the 5 viewers that will reach the end of the video,
hi guys.
like you guys are heroes.
Thank you for your attention.
Thanks for your attention.
Exactly on the topic of attention.
It's one of the purposes of our podcast.
So how do you suggest people should invest their attention?
I think a very good way to do this is to reduce the amount of stimuli that you have to deal with. So one way to do this could be putting your phone on silent or turning the notifications down. One way could be unsubscribing yourself from many emails or turning the notifications off on platforms.
Right.
And this goes along with increasing the time that you spend doing one thing. The more you spend a long, sustained period of time attending to one thing, the more your brain is exercised, the more you're able to concentrate in the future. And I've seen this very well recently. I used to, over the last few months, I've just been reading books on the tube. So for maybe an hour a day in kind of fragmented 15-minute slots on the tube.
Yeah, you have to switch.
And when I actually sat down at home over the Christmas holidays, I found myself looking up automatically at the end of each page.
Every 15
something else.
Yeah.
After the end of the holidays, where I'd spent some more time reading for a couple of hours, I was much more able to concentrate. And because there's a huge task switching cost, whenever you change tasks, whenever you switch to a new tab,
Your brain has
change
to adapt.
applications,
Yeah.
there's a bit of wasted time.
It's kind of a
Right.
muscle, man. You have to.
Yeah, it's almost like you're eating and then you stand up to do another exercise. Your whole body has to adapt to this new activity.
Yeah.
So in terms of it properly investing your attention, you think we have to first streamline the amount of stimuli we receive by switching off, choosing, managing in a way. That's very interesting. You know, one of my theses for this year is the idea of content curating. And I think in a sense, like, we have reached a point where suddenly the amount of things that we can do is just impossible, is infallible. You know, there's no way that we can even approach a level of understanding or processing everything that is presented to us.
From Yorkshire to London. In Yorkshire, you have to actively search out things to do. You have to go and look up content to go to and so on.
Yeah, and
In
London,
there's so much
things
going
just
on.
happen.
You say
Yeah,
no to things.
Yeah, you have to say no to things.
Yeah, you have to
exactly.
choose,
And I think in this age of omnipresence and omnipotence, where we have access, we have this fake idea of access to everything. It's just like overwhelming. So my idea is that in a way we're going to find this next generation of curators. And I wanted to have your take on this. What do you think about this new age of digital celebritism? You know, like influencers, professionals, and all this bubble, this inflation,
figures,
this idea of inflation, of accumulation of
So
attention.
It's good and beneficial in one way, because this is like when in the 90s the internet brought us the chance to publish on an individual level, which people could never do before.
Correct.
And now people on an individual level, they have the chance to get a following, and a lot of them are doing really good things. There are many channels on YouTube where they have millions and millions of viewers, and they're teaching people new skills.
Correct.
They're looking into science, they're looking into music.
They're teaching a lot of stuff.
So I think this is overall a good trend, but of course there are some negative aspects. There's the idea that you can waste a few years of your life being an Instagram celebrity, and then you might lose your following and you won't have any skills.
Right.
And there's also the fact what celebrities have to go through in terms of mental health issues because of their celebrity.
Yeah.
We've had, for example, several celebrities recently have quit Instagram, have quit Twitter, because they had to put up with a massive amount of abuse and traumatic messages, and it was making them feel bad about themselves. Yeah. So, even if you're a minor celebrity now, especially if you're a minority, or you're a woman, or you're not white, then you're going to put up with a fantastic amount of harassment and abuse on whatever online platforms you choose to use, because there are none that give you tools to prevent this.
So do you think this is a
So
threat?
overall, I think celebrity is definitely changing. I think it's probably good to have more medium-level celebrities rather than a few hundred A-listers who accumulate far too much money, perhaps. But we do have to consider the effect this is having, especially on young people and on the mental health of people who get famous as well.
Yeah. So do you think this is bound to go away? Do you think this is bound to fade out?
No, because humans we've been called hypersocial animals. We love to communicate. We love to get to know each other. We love to argue. We love to fight. We love to discuss things.
We love it.
And we love to look up to people and to have celebrities and to have fans.
Right.
So I don't think any of this is going away. I do hope, however, that we'll manage to modulate these developments in a more positive way. That we'll manage to change the system so that the people who are deriving the benefit are the celebrities and their fans, rather than the people who are running the company that
sponsors the story.
And in fact helps them. YouTube, for example, will train vloggers on how to get more engagement in their videos, how to get more fans and so on. And this is not because it benefits the celebrities or the vloggers, it's because it benefits YouTube.
Of
exactly.
course. Yeah,
exactly. Like
it's just a bunch of hacks.
Everything is the issue is that right now everything people most of the content creators, the only thing that they want is to maximize engagement and clicks in order to maximize profit. It's not a content-driven generation. It's an attention inflation generation.
It's just shortcuts and hacks, man. You know,
this is
that
why
bothers
it's really
me.
precious to find a channel on YouTube that does actually connect with the viewers in a nice way, that does actually share skills. I saw a channel recently, for example, it's a young teenager who lives on a narrowboat on a canal. For our international viewers, this is one of those long canal boats where you live on. And she's just posting about the local nature and flora and fauna and so on. But of course, most channels on YouTube, they use things like machine learning generated voices so that they don't have to have a narrator. They use special effects and bangs and pops all over the place so that nothing new comes on the screen without being accompanied by a sound effect. They're getting shorter and shorter, and so we're engaged again in a race to the bottom for people's attention. We sort of saw this in the 90s with the History Channel, for example, which is well known for inflating a 30-minute program to 1 hour by showing scenes again and again.
Right.
On the internet, we're seeing this in an even worse manner, and we need to be aware of this and to select channels and entertainment to watch, which is perhaps a bit more committed.
It's a shame because I see a bunch of most of the channels I follow on YouTube. Well, from time to time, I just stop and I look at all the channels I'm following on YouTube, and I just unfollow half of them because it's kind of a kind of hypnosis. Like if you don't pay attention in like 2 months, you just end up with a bunch of cluttered garbage, and you're like, "What's this?" You know. So I think like a good advice is like from time to time, like be critical about what you're looking at. You know.
So always switch off the autoplay on YouTube.
Of course.
We had a couple of scandals about this recently. If you start watching left-wing videos, you'll be redirected within a few next videos to right-wing videos, even to extremist videos. It never happens in the other way, and children will start watching a completely above-board innocent program, and before they know it, they'll be redirected to something that's abusive or scary.
One more note on this, and just another note on this is so if you turn off your autoplay and you start curating what you're really interested in, like from I don't know, once a month or once every 6 months if you want, I don't know, you end up if you're really careful about the content, you end up following a bunch of these like smaller channels but have great content. And it's a shame because those should be rewarded because they're doing great content.
But they're not good for the system. They're not good for business. So
that's the thing, man.
For me, and I'm sorry to go back to fear mongering, and I don't know if I've kind of embraced the fact that I'm supposed to be a fear monger. I think there's
fearmonger.
I don't know in the sense that I don't know if it's just cynicism or if I'm pessimist, but it's kind of weird in the sense that I think that it's crazy the mirror effect that this has on us, especially when you talk about politics. And I don't want to talk about politics, but this effect on, like, if you watch a left-wing video, you're more prompt to watch more left-wing videos. So I'm just going to shove a bunch of left-wing ideology on you, and you're just going to consume it. But this creates these echo chambers, which is for me very problematic because it breaks away from this the importance of dichotomy in English. Dichotomy. It really breaks away from the very basic primitive idea of we need contrast to find synthesis. You know, and
you need to watch both sides.
This is anti-human, and this is where I'm probably gonna stay a fear monger until I'm proven wrong, because this is where I think it can really spiral out of control, in the sense that. I fear that we're going to reach a point where we learn we don't necessarily need other people, and that's going to be disastrous on a humanitarian level.
Kind of a dangerous conclusion.
Yeah, it's a very because I tend to stretch ideas to the very far end to see where it will lead us, even if it's utopic or dystopic.
Sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you just need to look in the dark corners of the internet, and you can already see where it's led.
You can see
so tell me your take on this. Am I crazy to be a fear monger about this?
Not at all. No, polarization is definitely a very damaging effect. The YouTube autoplay algorithm, for example, it's one of the most advanced pieces of machine learning in the world. It's worked on by a team of the most advanced specialists in AI and machine learning who have ever existed, and it's very powerful. It's I've been polarized by it with Brexit, for example. in the run-up to Brexit, I don't have anyone in my close circles who is a fervent supporter. So I was thinking that people who are behind Brexit are supporting it mainly for reasons to do with, for example, immigration or racial issues. But once I actually went and talked to some of them in situations like pubs that I usually wouldn't go to, or people who I usually wouldn't work with, they're actually mostly quite nice people, and mostly the reasons are the economics. But in my bubble on Facebook and my bubble on Twitter, they're being abused. They're being called racists. They're being called people who don't care about
idiots or whatever
themselves.
Yeah.
And so I'm in these bubbles as well, even though I try not to be, and I'm aware that they're happening.
Yeah.
It's a very serious issue.
Yeah. There's a philosopher of technology called Albert Borgman, and he came up with a concept called social hyperreality. And this concept is about it's about efficiency in a way. So we are all very much comfortable in our computers by ourselves, not being interrupted by humans at least, and we are just clicking away, scrolling away, tapping away freely, and it's very sovereign. It's very empowering to be in that situation. So this concept of social hyperreality is this preference of that position people prefer this.
Of course, yes.
Because the other option would be actually being in a room with people, and it can get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It can get nasty. You know?
You're afraid of criticism. You're afraid of being corrected. You're afraid of being ridiculized.
So this social hyperreality is
human interaction more than the fact that now you have 30 seconds to think about what you're going to say before you type your response.
Exactly.
Maybe you type something and you think they won't like that.
You can take 10 minutes or 1 hour.
I love that. I love that. This fake sense of profoundness that people have today when they take their time to come up with this.
Just looking up quotes.
Oh my God! You know, this is what I miss about debates. You know, most of the time when I meet these people, because I'm going around all the time, you talk to people and they have nothing to say. And they look so witty. Their avatars are so smart and so profound.
They have a picture of Nietzsche.
Yeah, exactly. Because they have time to Google shit. Because otherwise they won't be able to structure an idea and present it. And this is my fear mongering. Because not only is this more comfortable today, this is endorsed and promoted. This is how you win today socially. So that's my problem.
Here's the thing. There's we can put on our tinfoil hats on right now at this moment. Like there's a conspiracy theory going. So, but it's not so far away from reality in the sense like I remember when I was reading a bit about British history. There were a bunch of debate clubs all around the UK. And
pubs, coffees.
No, listen to this. No, there were actually formal debate clubs where there were rules and there were people debating. There's an audience. Pubs and coffee shops.
To put you in touch with people who disagree with you.
Exactly. Those were actually broken up by the government. The debate clubs, if you check into the history, they were broken up because I don't know why. Okay, I don't want to imply that I know why. This is one thing. The other thing is that in communism, in communist countries. For example, in Argentina with I'm sorry, in Chile with Pinochet, there was a moment where it was illegal to have 3 people talking at the same time. If you have 3 or more people talking, like the government, they would just
it's a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy. They would break them. They would break them away. So here's the thing: what happens when we debate face to face? When we talk 3 or more people in life? You I'm sorry to say, you fucking grow. You fucking advance with the ideas.
You learn things like how to time your comments right in the conversation, how to interrupt people, whether you should interrupt someone, whether your point deserves. And you have all of these channels of body language and facial expressions and so on. We're getting some of these through Skype now, but we still don't get all of them. We don't get the tiny nuances that you can see happening in a group.
Yeah, but it's super important. So
but it's nasty. It's a nasty process.
Yeah, you know? but it's only through conflict do we evolve.
Of course. There's a bunch of phrases that say that.
But I love this idea. You know, there's a bunch of ways of saying this, but it's only, and it goes back. I'm fascinated at the moment with this sense of like how important contrast is needed for us to find harmony, and only in opposition do these two concepts fully manifestate themselves in the sense that, you know, like this sense of like, you know, we're from Brazil. We are currently living in Mexico. My brother used to live in London. I used to live in Italy. I was based in Singapore for a while. Like we have traveled a lot. I consider us extremely lucky in the scope of things. We have been exposed to
a lot of contrast.
so much contrast. And it's
we are definitely in the top 5% of the population of the world.
I think
we've been lucky to experience, both in the critical thinking, which we've been trained, and the bits of the world that we get to see. And it's important to realize that hardly anyone has this level of opportunity, but nearly everyone is connected to the internet, and we need to find a way to use the internet and the web to bring these opportunities to people.
Correct, but the way I think it is also that it's almost like social media plays a wrong placebo effect on people, giving them a false sense of globalization when there is none.
Exactly. When you receive a like, for example, you imagine, you go, I feel this as well. I feel a little surge of happiness when someone likes.
And surge of happiness.
You feel like someone is actually feeling a real emotion to you, but they're probably just sitting on a train.
Oh my God! It was a cat walking on a keyboard. I mean, it means nothing, and that's why
or worse, it was a pity like.
Yeah, or a pity like, which is even worse, or a mom like, or a aunt like, which is all you get from Facebook right now.
Yeah,
I mean, you're probably gonna walk away from this conversation thinking I'm a fearmonger, which I probably am. But that's why I'm so radical with these ideas that either we need to hit rock bottom in order to be awakened, maybe, or we need to be more radical to the way we try to approach solution making, because I don't think we can tread lightly into this. I think treading lightly into what is something that is already being proven to be very catastrophical. I mean, take this metaphor. If any drug launched by any pharmaceutical company in the world had a side effect of increasing anxiety and depression by 30%, what will happen to that drug?
It was go off market.
I don't understand how social media and fangs can get away with these vicious, Machiavellic algorithms with no repercussion. And we call it great business, and we fucking idolatrize these people.
Some people call them the Four Horsemen. Some people call them the Big Four. We call them fags. It's Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google. But essentially those guys. It's tough, man. I mean, Microsoft was demonized in the 90s because it was a monopoly. But and the thing is that I was watching a podcast. I was listening to a podcast it's called Recode Decode. It's I don't know her name. I think it's Reid Hoffman. She interviews a bunch of tech people, and she was comparing what Microsoft did in the 90s to what Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google are doing today. And it's completely a different league.
It's nothing.
It's $1 trillion
Microsoft
companies.
did get a monopoly. They still introduced computing technology into the homes of billions, and they didn't try and step on interpersonal interaction. They didn't try and look into discourse. They didn't try and control conversation or debate. They just looked at the relationship between you and the computer.
Correct.
Of course, they laid the groundwork
and
for
the other thing
to come along and set up social networks and so on. But I still believe that Microsoft is overall, it's not such an evil force. But we're still in the wild, wild west of the web and the internet at the moment.
And
it
the other
seems
thing,
to be moving very fast, but it's only been up and usable by the layman for about 10 or 15 years.
It's true.
And I have a lot of faith that things will improve.
me too.
I'll take your optimism.
You can look at Wikipedia. These are platforms where people put hours and hours and hours of their time into doing something that's beneficial for everyone. So there's already inspiration.
I agree. I will take I will balance. I will contrast my pessimism and fear mongering with your optimism, and you're probably much more educated in the topic than I am. So this conversation really gives me like a very positive vibe of hope that there are very decent, smart people like yourself working on this. And we're probably going to reach a much better point at some point in life. And I want to take this opportunity to probably wrap it up and like offer the opportunity for some sense of conclusion.
I was going to open up a bunch of more questions.
We're reaching an hour and we're probably not going to stop. But let this be an open invitation for people to actually engage in proper debate. And like one of the main things that we're trying to do, and you're going to find this as a common thread in every video that we do, is that we value the idea of speaking about uncomfortable ideas, about the value of contrasting yourself with other people and engaging in conversation with people that complement your point of view and can bring more to the table, and how enriching this is versus a bunch of other things that we do that we invest our time poorly and give us so little. in that sense. So again, like Fintan, thank you so much for the conversation. I will give you two the opportunity for a wrap up.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for the invitation as well. It's been great. And for the viewers, feel free to get in touch with me if you have any more questions about social media or cognitive neuroscience or the interaction between the two. I'm very happy to engage.
Yeah, cool. For me, I would just like to add that we're going to add also the link for Lyra, for Hello Lyra, for people to understand like the values and,
yeah, so
and how you do
if you
things.
think it would be a good idea, we can start a conversation that we can link out to the viewers as well, so they can perhaps follow up there afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
So a way Lyra is bringing people to understand how they work is by like getting good topics. Like we spoke about making a thread about Game of Thrones, remember? And just like getting a bunch of like very professionals, like people that really love and know the books, and then people that watch the series and then just debate it out, you know, talk in a cool place to debate, you know, not like in a, I don't know, you know, like randomly ranting on the web, you know. But yeah, that would be an idea. We can do that, you know. Like,
let's go. Fintan, again, thank you so much for the time, for the conversation. We really appreciate it. It was a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Thank you as well, both. Have a good evening, and I'll see you around.
Thank you so much, man. Take care.
See
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.